right, so I'm out driving for dollars, giving it a shot. That one lady already tried to break into my car. She just walked up on me and pulled my doorknob.
Stop driving for dollars. Now, when I started investing in real estate about 15 years ago, if you asked any quote unquote guru or mentor, how do I get started in wholesaling? They're gonna tell you drive for dollars, mainly because it's the low hanging fruit. Driving for dollars for a person that doesn't have a background in entrepreneurship feels like work. And guess what? People are trying to trick you into thinking that if you're working, you're an entrepreneur. If you're grinding, if you're hustling, you're an entrepreneur. In my opinion, and in my experience, if you're driving for dollars, most likely you're hustling backwards. Now, it makes sense for certain people to drive for dollars. I mean, like an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, even a garbage man, a postal worker. These individuals drive and get paid to drive. But if you're driving for dollars, you're spending more money on gas and you're not utilizing your time being connected to direct income, meaning you want to be doing RGAs, revenue generating activities. So if you're not driving for dollars, what could you be doing? What should you be doing? Well, the first thing you could do is download some lists. You want to start with lists that make sense. You want to identify individuals that may have houses that look like the ones you were looking when you were driving for dollars. Now, let's face it, all houses don't have value or sufficient enough value for you to wholesale. Now, if you're going to be a wholesaler, you need that 70% margin. We all know that magic formula, right? ARV times 70% minus repairs equals maximal allowable offer. That's what your back-end buyer wants. If a house is too ran down, if it's in too poor condition, there's no chance of an ARV for the back-end buyer to buy. So stop pursuing the super duper ugly houses. I suggest you pull a list from maybe a platform like PropStream. And I would start with pulling vacant properties. Now, vacant properties have great value because no one's living in them. And they're easy to be able to prospect because you could pull the list from PropStream and get mailing addresses and target those houses. Now, at some point, we know that those vacant properties aren't generating income, so you already have a value proposition to bring to the table. The second thing, delinquent property taxes. Now, when a person has delinquent property taxes, chances are they're obviously not paying their taxes. But another thing is most taxes are rolled into a mortgage by way of an escrow payment. So if a person has a extended delinquency as it relates to taxes, most likely they don't have a mortgage on that house because the bank would have taken it by now. So that's a great property to pursue because if you're in wholesaling, you need that huge equity position. Well, it gets no better than if a person owns their house outright. Now, the next type of property to pursue is probate. Probate properties are properties that are probably going to be ghosted, so to speak, because reality is that means someone most likely, unfortunately, passed away. And a lot of times when I encounter these properties, they have a relative or a family member that lives out of state and they've never even seen the property. So they're completely disinterested in the property and they have absolutely no emotional ties to the property. That's a great property to go after. Lastly, this is a sneaky good one. If you can make friends with the individuals that do code violations in a specific area, you have made a great friend because they know all the vacant properties and they know what code violation each property is having. They know if the fines are stacking up against the property owner. So in knowing that, that gives you a great position. So now you know where and who to target. I want to talk to you really quickly about how to not drive for dollars and to use virtual driving for dollars without a car, okay? No gas, no car. First, identify location. Now, location is so key because they don't just say that we're location for no reason, right? We want to go after properties that have higher likelihood to sell quickly. And more importantly, we want to look for houses with higher equity positions. These are individuals with an ownership period of more than 7 years. Next, we want to find areas that we know cash buyers are buying. That's easy to find. If you go to MLS, you got a relationship with a real estate agent, they can look at all the cash buyers in a zip code or even a neighborhood. You also can pull cash buyers from PropStream, which is very useful. And lastly, this is super simple. Go to Google Maps. Once you identify the zip code or the neighborhood you want to prospect, go to Google Maps, go to Street View, and just walk the neighborhood. I hope you take this advice to heart and stop driving for dollars, stop wasting your time, and make yourself a better and more efficient wholesaler.